Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and it is time for the start of our first congressional forum. Every Sunday, we are going to have candidates from different districts of Congress coming onto the air. We are starting off with the Congressional District 6th and Congressional District 10th today. We did invite every candidate that is running, and we have got confirmation from Joey Ruzevich, who is running for the 6th Congressional District. Congressman Sean Casten has not responded to multiple emails to come on the forum. So that goes to show you who he is answerable to, not the people, but to the people who are funding him. Okay. So we're going to have also the 10th Congressional District. Morgan Coghill is challenging Brad Schneider. Brad Schneider was invited to the forum, and Brad Schneider has not responded positively to coming on the air and just letting us know who he is, what is he running on, and by the way, the richest congressman in Illinois. His net worth is $30 million, folks. Come on. Okay. So, and you want to go ahead and represent the people with that kind of network, but let's not get sidetracked. So the format is very simple. We're going to have 2 minutes to each candidate to introduce themselves, and then we'll have our panelists. We have got Dr. Sheila White, former Congresswoman Marie Newman, and Read Bible, and Mike Patino. And this entire forum is sponsored by Aslan Consulting. That's Mike's company. So we are going to start off with that kind of an approach. Each panelist will have about 6 minutes total to answer some questions from each candidate, from our panelists. And then we'll wind up the forum. If you have any questions, if you'd like to join the conversation, you're welcome to call the studio hotline, 773-763-9278. Let me repeat that number, 773-763-9278. And this is sponsored by Ray Hanania of hanania.com. And it is called as What's on Your Mind? That is the segment for the phone calls. So with that, let me welcome our two congressional candidates. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Hey, and good morning, Morgan.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, and let me introduce our panelists to you. Dr. Sheila White, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And I see Read Bible has joined us. Read Money, good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that part, Read. Okay. Marie Newman, Marie, good morning.
Good morning.
So, first show of the year, and we've got two excellent candidates that have joined us this morning, Marie. And let me introduce Mike Patino. Mike, good morning. Okay, I don't hear Mike. So Mike has Mike, I don't hear you.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year too.
No, we're talking about to Mike Patino.
You don't hear me?
I can hear you, but Mike, your mouth is not moving. Okay.
Yeah, he might be frozen.
Yeah,
He's frozen.
so Mike's video is frozen. That does not mean that he can't talk. And let's get the show on the road. Joey, I've been giving you 2 minutes to introduce yourself, who you are, what are you running for, what do you want to do?
Thank you. So my name is Joey Ruzevich. I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 6th Congressional District. I'm a software engineer. I was born and raised in Orland Park, which is in the district. And I think that right now America is in a crisis both economically and morally. And I think that these two issues are tied. Everybody from my generation is seeing that the American dream is slipping away from them. The ability to own a home and start a family is economically non-feasible today, especially on one salary, which was available to just my father and his father before him, the individual who came to America for that American dream. And I think that one of the main reasons why we are in that economic crisis is because we are also in a moral crisis of sending all of our money to war. Now, I could talk about everything from the Vietnam War to the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, to now the war in Venezuela, or the illegal military operation, the regime change, the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro, whatever you want to call it. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on war instead of building up our cities, towns, and infrastructure. I'm also, as I mentioned, a software engineer. I spent time working for the Department of Defense doing machine learning research, and then I became a mobile app engineer for Silicon Valley tech company. And I am extremely concerned about technology, artificial intelligence, and data centers, and how those issues are also intertwined with the crisis we are in economically and morally. The data centers are driving up electricity costs at a rate of 14% increase year over year for the state of Illinois. And we are seeing a rapid desocialization of the youth, a minimization of the human to human contact that people have, an atrophying of the human brain and the ability to think for
Joey, so
themselves.
sorry to bust in, but
No problem.
we
Sorry
are on a
about
time
that.
crunch. So 2 minutes for introductions. And let's get Morgan to introduce himself. Morgan, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Coghill, and I'm the progressive candidate for Congress in the Illinois 10th. I'm a small business owner. I live in Mundelein. I've lived here for 10 years. I have a family, 2 dogs, 2 kids, etc. And like Joey, I'm a bit older than he is, but I see the American dream slipping away. As FDR put towards the American people during World War II regarding a second Bill of Rights. Well, I'm running on a platform on a 21st century Bill of Rights. And what does that look like specifically? Number one is a people's economy, things like a $25 an hour minimum wage, universal pre-K, universal child care. That's number one. Number two, justice is not an option. We are seeing masked men seize people off the streets just based on their skin color. And that needs to stop. We need to disband ICE in its current form. No unilateral criminalization of medical procedures. We're seeing it all over the country, whether it's women's bodies, transgendered people's bodies. This medical care is becoming, an actual crime in this country, and that cannot continue.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself and what your platform is. Let's get started with our panelist, with former Congresswoman Marie Newman, who has been there, seen that, with the first question. Marie, good morning.
Good morning. Well, we're going to kick it off with a big one, the affordability crisis that we have in our nation and working families. As a former Congresswoman, I see it every day, is that we, as we have gone into this, and I will call it an authoritarian regime, things are worse for working families than they ever have been. Our haves and have-nots we're at a critical juncture, right? So my first question is, and I'll go ahead and pose it to Morgan first. Working families, Morgan, are facing higher costs and job insecurity like they have never before, truly. What is your concrete, and when I say concrete, it can be big, small, or in between, but specific, like top 3 plans to lower costs without cutting social protections? Because one of our challenges has been, right, is that the go-to for this Republican-led Congress is to take away social service protections to service the 1%, right? We know that doesn't work. It never has worked. Trickle down is not a thing, all of the things, right? So tell me, what are some of the things you would do that would be concrete when you get to Congress? It can be legislation, policy, whatever. Please share.
Well, number one is tax the rich. As Mohammed pointed out, if we had a wealth tax on Brad Schneider's wealth of $30 million, we could fund Medicare for all for about 100 or 120 people just by taxing him. We need wealth redistribution, because right now the difference between the haves and the have-nots is so vast Someone who works at Walmart gets it coming and going. They pay below market wages, and then the SNAP benefits that those people get, they spend at Walmart for their groceries.
Mhm.
That can't continue. Things like a $25 an hour minimum wage, federally mandated, which is where it should be if it had kept up with inflation, we would have been able to, we wouldn't be having these same issues. We have allowed the rich to get richer because they complain that any sort of regulation is going to limit job growth, limit opportunity, limit investment. Well, we've reached the tipping point, and we're probably over the tipping point. So a $25 an hour minimum wage and a 2% wealth tax. Those are two concrete steps that we would take to make sure that we could more even out the playing field from where it is today. Additionally, the highest marginal tax rate should go up, and the cap on Social Security contributions should disappear. People who make over $180,000 are not contributing to Social Security at all. So those who are lucky enough to make that much, come December, they think their paycheck is wrong and they talk to HR, and it turns out they're no longer contributing. Just by doing that, all of a sudden Social Security is solvent for another 30 years. So those are my top three.
Great. Quick follow-up. Money in politics has to do with our economy because it's the reason we don't have Medicare for all. It's the reason we do not have climate change legislation. It's the reason we have a screwed up economy. So what would you say about money in politics? Share what your policy is around money in politics.
Well, if you look at donors, the people who donate money to you, that's a moral choice on their part and on yours. Who you accept money from is a moral part. If you are taking money from credit card companies, banks, insurance companies, and defense contractors, that's a moral choice. Right. So, I am for getting rid of Citizens United. We should not have unlimited dark money in politics. But additionally, I'm running a grassroots campaign. I'm not taking any money from corporate donors, and that's done on purpose. And it's made my life a whole lot harder, quite honestly. Yep. But I want to be able to look myself in the mirror as to who my donors are. If you're taking money from Discover Card, you're not going to be providing protections against usurious and outrageous interest rates.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move over to Joey with the same set of questions. So Joey, working families, you mentioned it in your upfront comments, are facing the very highest cost in job insecurity like never before. I think we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg with layoffs in Fortune 1000 companies. What are some of the concrete things you would do, legislation you would support, ideas you have around bringing costs down or making life more affordable in general without, and it's a big without cutting social protections?
Yes. So we can stop the price gouging and then ease up on other economic pressures. So, for example, Morgan Coghill mentioned Medicare for all. And I think that's an excellent plan that would relieve a lot of people's pocketbooks immediately. Well, we've seen the premium spikes once the ACA subsidies went away and how unaffordable healthcare was with the subsidies, and now even more unaffordable without, especially for a family of 4 or 5, let's say. And then back to the price gouging, we've seen it from the time of COVID when prices were going up 100, 200, 300% and costs were only going up 15, 30%. This is price gouging that the government has the ability to stop and to provide a windfall profits tax on any company that is raising their rates that is outside of the rate of inflation. Additionally, technology is now being used to price gouge. More Perfect Union came out with a story regarding Instacart doing algorithmic price fixing on their app, which means that they are estimating how much people are willing to pay for a certain given product or service compared to another individual. So we are not being charged the same prices. I would also raise the federal minimum wage. It's been at $7.25 for since 2011, I believe, and this is just untenable. So absolutely raise the minimum wage federally, provide Medicare for all, and then stop the price gouging.
Excellent, great. And then a quick follow-up, and then we'll move on to the next set of questions. So corporate money, tell us a little bit about what your philosophy is around corporate money and then bully packs and the like.
Yes, corporate money, it runs politics right now, and all money comes with strings attached. The individual I'm running against, Representative Sean Casten, has taken over $470,000 from corporations. And of course, that comes with strings attached, as I mentioned. He sits on the Financial Services Committee and takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from Wall Street and private equity. And so that influences an individual's decisions when they're passing legislation. So first and foremost, the individual candidate must take a pledge to not accept corporate PAC money or accept PAC money that is bully PAC, like you mentioned, which is spent on behalf of a candidate to attack their opponent. So the individual has to make a pledge to do this, and then legislatively, we have to take steps in order to wash out the corporate money, because I agree, Citizens United should be repealed, but that's going to require a constitutional amendment, and that's a lot of work. So what could happen right away is that Congress passes legislation in the form of, let's say, democracy dollars, so that every American gets to spend $500 only on a political donation to a candidate, and that money would then wash out the amount of money that corporations spend on a race.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, Joey, and thank you, Marie. Thank you, Morgan, for answering those questions. And folks, if you have any questions for our candidates, feel free to jump in, and you can call. The call-in number is 773-763-9278 or 773-763-WCPT. And we've got our next panelist coming up to grill these candidates, and I want to bring in Reed Bible. Reed, good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed, and good morning, candidates. Thank you for coming on board here to talk today. I'd like to turn to the area of foreign policy, and I'd appreciate it if you could keep your answers to 1.5 minutes each, and I might have a follow-up question for you too. Especially in light of what's happening in Gaza and the Israeli genocide going on there, I'd like to know from each of you, and we'll start off with Mr. Ruzevich. Should U.S. military aid be conditioned on compliance with international humanitarian law? If so, why?
Absolutely, because it's currently the law. There's something called the Leahy Act, and this requires that the United States does not sell arms or weapons or provide aid to any country that is accused of violating international law. This is a law that is currently on the books that is not being enforced, and we need to enforce the laws that we currently have. I would immediately cut off all aid to Israel because they are committing a genocide. And this is across the board. I'm not an isolationist necessarily, but I do believe that we have the money to build a much better society in America if we kept those tax dollars in America spent on our cities and towns and infrastructures, and not on 900 military bases around the world, $1 trillion Pentagon budget in which they failed to pass an audit for 8 years in a row. And $170 billion to Ukraine that does not have an inspector general attached. And for those who don't know, an inspector general is somebody who simply watches over our money to make sure that there is no fraud or corruption involved. And we did not attach one to that aid, any of those aid packages. So there are a lot of things that we can do in order to stop wasting money on wars. And absolutely, we should require that countries follow international law in order to receive any aid whatsoever.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coghill, the same question to you, please.
No, I agree with Joey 100%. No, any international military aid should absolutely be subject to the fact that the recipient of that aid is in compliance with, not only international law, but U.S. law as well. Right now, there's a genocide going on in Israel. One of my first acts would be to co-sponsor and sign the Block the Bombs Act that Congresswoman Ramirez has put forth. I think that in the international sphere, I used to work for a USAID and a State Department contractor overseas in Russia and in Ukraine. I've seen firsthand what soft power does. It is far more effective. Walk softly and carry a big stick, as Teddy Roosevelt says. So we should be much more active. My view is a little bit more nuanced than Joey's. I think we should have, quite a bit more international aid flowing. But yes, it should be conditioned, if we're providing military aid, on compliance with U.S. and international law.
Okay, Mr. Coghill, I have a quick follow-up for you too, please. What responsibility does Congress have when civilian casualties mount?
All of it. The Congress was formed in Article 1 of the Constitution. We control the purse strings. It is our job to put a check on the executive branch. The executive branch is to be our errand boy, not the other way around. It is incumbent upon Congress to make sure that the executive branch is behaving in a way that is commensurate with our laws and international laws. And we're going to have to get creative. Strongly worded letters and saying, well, the president should have asked permission first, isn't going to cut it. We're going to have to be much more creative and much more aggressive in our oversight of what the executive branch is doing.
Thank you. Mr. Ruzevich, I'd like to pose that same question to you. What responsibility does Congress have when civilian casualties mount?
Same as Morgan, 100% of the responsibility, because we do control the power of the purse, and we make the decisions as far as which aid packages are distributed and when and why. So certainly the president has a little bit of responsibility as the chief executive of the military, but the Congress controls the power of the purse. And so we have to be aware of all of the situations happening with our tax dollars, monitoring them and making sure that we have levers of power to pull that funding away from a country if the civilian casualties are mounting.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your answers. I'm going to turn over the next segment over to Dr. Sheila White. Dr. White, you're up next.
So, folks,
Yes,
before I bring in Dr. Sheila White, I just want to again say a couple of words over here. This is the first congressional forum that we are having over here on our show, the Lightning Strike. We had invited both the Congress people that are in place right now, Brad Snyder and Sean Casten, and they have not responded or joined the conversation today. So I just want to let everyone know that every candidate that is out there is being invited. And next Sunday, we are going to have the Congressional Forum for the 7th Congressional District. So don't, please do tune in next Sunday also. And let's get to Dr. Sheila White. Dr. White.
Yes, this question is for Joey. Joey, in your upfront comments, you mentioned a little bit about artificial intelligence. What precautions would you take to put up guardrails for youth and vulnerable individuals?
First and foremost, I want to ban AI chatbots for anybody under the age of 18. I think this is a detrimental technology. These are human imitating machines, and people under the age of 18 do not have a fully formed prefrontal cortex, and they cannot separate what is a human and what isn't a human. And so this is causing, as I mentioned, an atrophying of social abilities, a minimization of human-to-human contact, and ChatGPT in particular is being accused of pushing children to take their own lives, which is absolutely horrific. So the safety mechanisms that could potentially be put in place, I don't even think are worth going after. I think we should simply ban this technology for kids under the age of 18. That is not to say that we should ban all AI tools for everybody under 18. I'm a software engineer. I use AI tools for code generation. It helps a lot if you know what you're doing and you can have pre-filled code and you just gloss over it to make sure that there are no mistakes. That's a tool that could be used to help improve productivity, and I think would be beneficial to kids to know how to use, similar to a calculator. However, this human imitation is what I'm extremely concerned about, and that is causing a desensitization as well with kids, especially, and of course with adults too. We're dealing with a mental health crisis in our country, and these human imitating chatbots are only exacerbating it. So these safety mechanisms can be put in for people over the age of 18, but it's not going to happen until Congress forces the tech companies to do it, because this would be a profit cost costing to the tech companies, and they are not going to go against their bottom line unless they are forced to do it. Nobody in Congress understands this technology right now. Nobody's a software engineer. Nobody's worked on machine learning technology. So they are relying on the tech companies and their lobbyists to write the regulations for them. And that's why we need a software engineer in Congress.
Okay.
Yes.
Well said, Joey. Well said.
Next question. This is for Morgan as well as for Joey. What is one vote in Congress you would refuse to compromise on, and why?
One, I go first?
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead, Morgan.
No, I would not, one of the things I've complained about my opponent, Brad Schneider, is he keeps falling for Republican gotcha votes. I'm not going to put myself in a position, for instance, the anti-Semitism messaging bill we had most recently, where there was a line in there praising ICE. Yeah, you're condemning anti-Semitism, but I'm not going to vote for that because I'm not going to praise ICE because Midway Blitz started a month later. I'm not going to vote to lionize Charlie Kirk, which Brad Schneider did. I'm not going to vote like Brad did on HR 9495 to give the secretary the entire ability to determine who's a domestic terrorist. And this was after Trump was elected. We knew who we were giving power to. I'm not going to fall for that sort of nonsense. So that's 3, not just 1.
Okay.
Joey, same question.
Yeah, I'll keep it to just one. It's Medicare for all. We do not need incrementalism anymore. We need full force Medicare for all covered the entire country and including eye care and dental care as well. Because I think it's ridiculous that those are separate to begin with. We've constantly heard why it can't happen. Even during a global pandemic, nobody, in Congress was willing to really fight and push for this to the extent that I felt was necessary. But of course, I'm not in Congress, so I don't know everything that was going on. And I think that anybody that's saying that we need a public option or we need to fix the insurance industry is just giving credence to the Republicans to allow this broken healthcare system to continue. And that's why I think Medicare for all is a required vote for anybody that calls themselves a Democrat going forward.
We'll turn it over to our co-panelist, Mike, for next questioning.
Good morning. Good morning, candidates. I have a question for Morgan. In light of the egregious assault on Chicago from ICE, I have a question. How should Congress balance border enforcement with human dignity and due process?
Well, there are many ways to do it. We had a bipartisan bill before Congress that Trump shivved at the very last minute. But in terms of concrete steps, number 1, we need to increase the number of immigration judges 3-fold. People are allowed to apply for asylum. They shouldn't exist in limbo for 10 years. ICE keeps grabbing people on their way to their asylum hearings or even their swearing in for immigration. Yes, we can lock down the border. We can make it, harder to come in, but that's not what America's about. We should be able to process people through the asylum system when they come in much faster than we're doing it now. And that takes resources. Yes, we should have border checkpoints. We should know, who's coming in. But once people are here, we need to have a quick way to determine whether, they are criminals. As we know, about 70% of the people who've been rounded up in Midway Blitz have no criminal record. These are landscapers. ICE is jumping out of U-Hauls and Home Depot parking lots. So there is a balance. We've had a balance. Yes, under the Biden administration, it was ignored. We've had a lot of people come in and a lot of people living in the shadows. So by increasing the number of immigration judges and the system as a whole, we can bring those people out of the shadows and fully into American life.
Thank you, Morgan. Same question to Joey.
Yes, I would say that one of the best ways to secure our border and make sure that we have a great immigration process is to stop destabilizing countries around the world with our military operations. The reason why we had so many Venezuelan migrants coming to the United States was because we were actively destabilizing that country. Everybody wants to talk about the mass migration in Europe. Well, how about let's talk about the destabilization of all of the countries in the Middle East that led to people fleeing their homelands. I'm sure they would love to be able to stay and build lives there, but they're forced out because they're constantly being bombed by most of the time United States weapons and drones. So I think ending our constant march in militarism is going to do a whole lot of good for the asylum process. Of course, we also need to increase the amount of asylum judges that we have, and we need to fix our overall immigration process. My brother-in-law is an immigrant, and I saw firsthand how close, up close and personal, how messed up the current immigration system is. You have a lottery system. If you don't get picked by the lottery, then you have to be sponsored for a visa. And if you can't find a company to pay those fees to sponsor you for a visa, you're just SOL. Sorry, out of luck is the clean version of that.
Okay.
So, we need to have a multi-pronged approach of stopping destabilization of countries overseas, an increase in the amount of asylum judges that we have, and of course, to completely overhaul our immigration process so that people do have a pathway to citizenship. And we can say things that the Republicans say, like, oh, just go through the proper channels. Well, there are no proper channels right now that actually lead to citizenship. So we need to offer that first before we start claiming that people have to go through those proper channels.
Great, great. Exactly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, panelists, and thank you so much to our candidates over here. We have covered quite a bit of real estate over here in 30 minutes, Marie. So we got some time now for some more questions for our candidates. And by the way, folks, you are listening to the first Congressional Forum on the lightning strike, and we have got candidates from the 6th Congressional District and the 10th Congressional District with us on the radio today. And if you have any questions, feel free to call in, or you can even text us the question at 773-763-9278. I'm Mohammed Faheem, and the panelists today on the show are Dr. Sheila White, Read Bible, Marie Newman, and Mike Patino. Okay, so having said that, Marie, let's bring you back in. We've got some time, and let's see if we can get some more information out from our candidates over here.
Interestingly, I just got a text from a friend who's listening in right now, and his kids live in Illinois 10, and he lives in Illinois 6. And so it's germane to both of you. And I will tell you, this particular friend of mine is very candid. So I will read it to you.
Okay.
I will extract one word and rephrase it.
Yeah, if you could, please make sure that the FCC and the FEC
we won't use the particular word.
Don't come down our neck on these things.
So Marie, please ask the candidates if they can distinguish and differentiate and delineate themselves from the incumbent, meaning like what the heck makes them better and different, and why should I vote for them?
Okay, let's start off with Joey first.
Sure. So first and foremost, I am not bought and paid for by corporations or corporate PACs. I am a grassroots campaign. I only answer to the people. Second of all, I am not going to be a middle of the road, do nothing Democrat, which is what Representative Sean Casten is right now. He has not sought or achieved leadership positions in Congress in his 7 years in office. And I believe, Marie Newman was co-chair of the Transportation Committee opportunity as a freshman in Congress. So it's there if you want it. And if you want to make a change, you can go and seek those leadership positions to try to pass legislation in a way that's going to benefit the American people. And third, I would say my expertise in software engineering, machine learning, and artificial intelligence separate me from everybody else across the nation, really, that's running for office, because I think this is one of the major issues that we're going to run up against, both with foreign policy, the targeting systems that are being tested in Gaza, being brought back to be used in ICE, and the algorithmic price fixing that we see in the apps and the data centers causing the electricity rise. It is all connected, and we need somebody that understands technology. Representative Caston does not.
Thank you, Morgan. If you would do the same, there's a special little add-on from my friend that his kids are in Illinois 10 is he says, his claim, not mine, he claims that for whatever reason, Illinois 10 seems to like the current incumbents kind of middle of the road, do nothing. Even when I talk to residents there, they seem to like that he never gets into trouble. So please help us with that.
That is not going to be my problem. Joey, I am going to, I have my own business. If I wanted to do the same as everyone else, I wouldn't be doing this. I have lived overseas. I have my own business. I have 2 kids. I'm not going to DC to just do more of the same. I understand business. I understand international trade. I'm bilingual. I am not bought or paid for by corporations, just like Joey. So my priorities are different. They're always going to be different. The people who are contributing to me, they believe in what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of, the middle of the road, don't get in trouble, I think that one's played out. I mean, we're a D plus 17, 18 district. This isn't some purple, middle of the road district. This is the sort of district where we can have aggressive, younger progressives in office. We're going to go there and raise hell, as opposed to people who are just like, well, let's work with the MAGA Republicans until they kick us in the behinds again.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. White, any follow-up questions for our candidates? We've got 10 minutes to finish off the segment. So folks, again, you're tuned in to the Lightning Strike on WCPT, 8:20 a.m. And by the way, thank you to everyone for getting up this early in the morning on a Sunday morning to listen to what we are saying over here. Go ahead, Dr. White.
Yes, this question is for Joey and Morgan. What limits should exist on presidential power, especially in times of crisis? Morgan, you can go first.
Well, I think we need to repeal immediately the authorization of force from, 2001, 2002, dating back to, just post 9/11. This is the area where Congress has really shirked its responsibility. It is a co-equal branch of government. That means that we have a responsibility to put a check on the executive branch, whether that be through oversight or the power of the purse. In times of crisis, if it's a crisis, prove it's a crisis. Prove it to the people who are the elected representatives. Joey and I are going to be the closest DC representatives to the people in our district. We owe them explanations as to why we think it's a good idea to bomb Caracas and kidnap foreign heads of state. So I would put, there's a reason, like I said before, Article 1 forms the Congress, Article 2 forms the executive. And we need to lean more into Article 1 than into Article 2. No more imperial presidency.
Joey, same question.
So the 2 most important things are reducing the amount of power in a crisis that an executive has, like Morgan said, the explanation of why this constitutes a crisis. We need to have clear outlines of what would constitute a crisis. Because what happens is that Trump will claim that everything is a crisis and therefore has emergency powers all the time. So we need an outlined explanation of what constitutes a crisis before they can claim a crisis is happening. And then we have to have a clear rolling back of those powers as soon as the crisis is over. Because one thing that we know, especially with the Patriot Act, is that once civil liberties are taken from the people and powers are given to the government, they do not get given back. And so we need to have a process in which those civil liberties are protected and those powers are returned essentially to the people after a crisis is over, because it is being used and abused by these authoritarian leaders such as Trump.
And my next question is, what does democracy require of leaders when elections don't go their way? Go ahead, Joey.
Sure. It requires grace, and it requires honesty, and it requires the ability to admit when you've lost. So, of course, you need to make sure that there are excellent standards put in for elections so that the people trust the institutions. But we should not have this constant claiming that one election is stolen to the next. So the ability to lose gracefully is very important for a leader, to not be a sore loser to the point where you're, rallying up people to storm the Capitol.
Same question, Morgan.
Yeah, our 250 years of history are dependent on the peaceful transfer of power, that the losers acknowledging that they lost. And, in order for us to get back to that, yes, we're going to, people who lose need to understand that they lost and not scream fraud. It is, our election system, one of its strengths is just how dispersed it is. It is virtually impossible to have a wide scale election fraud in this country because it's run at the town, township, state, county levels. There are a lot of moving parts, and then the state board of elections oversees everything. We need to understand that we have some of the safest, securest elections in the world. And despite what our friends on the other side of the aisle say, who scream that, no, hey, it's all rigged. I hate that Democrats always have to be the adults in the room, but we have to be the adults in the room if we lose.
We got about 5 minutes to finish off this hour, folks. And excuse me, sorry. A question for both of you guys, okay? What will you do if the party is wrong?
I'll jump in. I will go against the party because I'm a principled individual and I am not beholden to the leadership of the party. The best example that I give is that I believe Democrats should be pro-union and should stand up for the working families of America. When in 2021, the railroad workers across America threatened to strike because they wanted one single day of sick pay on their monthly contract, President Biden of the Democratic Party sided with the owners of the railroad companies, the barons. And nobody in Congress stood up, including Representative Caston, stood up and said, hey, we're supposed to be the party of the working families. We're supposed to stand up for unions. And that was a shot to a signal to the entire nation that when it really comes down to it, the Democrats will not stand by you if their leadership does not allow them to stand by you. That's what's going to be different about me is I will not listen to the leadership of the party. I will have my principles and I will stand on them firmly.
Okay, same question, Morgan.
It's basically the same answer, but one good example is a lot of our Democratic colleagues, they take a lot of money from pharmaceutical lobbies. There is no earthly reason right now why Medicare should not be able to negotiate drug prices for all drugs, not just insulin and several others. 35, don't get me wrong, $35 price cap was a victory. It was a good victory. But Medicare is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. They should be able to go to Eli Lilly and Pfizer and say, no, we're not paying this. You get to raise your prices on people in Europe or in Canada, but here, no, you don't get to make all your profits here off of the backs of Americans. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of pushback in the Democratic Party on that, but this is one that we need. We can't go forward with drug prices the way they continue to be.
Okay, we got 3 minutes to finish off the segment over here, folks. You're tuned into the Lightning Strike on WCPT 8:20 a.m. We come every Sunday morning from 8, excuse me, from 8 to 10 a.m. Man, there's a frog in my throat today, Marie. I don't know what's happening. Okay, our
Sorry to hear that.
panelists have been Marie Newman, Read Bible, Mike Patino, and Dr. Sheila White. We are going to come back on the other side of the hour with more information and more programming from Read Bible, and Marie is going to come in with her segment. So I want you to stay tuned. Her topics this week include the Epstein update, Jack Smith bombshell, Venezuela tensions, and what to expect in the big races coming up. That would be at 9:15. Dr. White, let's get another question in from you.
Sure. My next question is for both of you. Name one policy you support that may be unpopular but necessary. You can go first, Morgan.
Unpopular amongst whom? If just for clarification.
Okay, and please limit your answer to like 30 seconds if you could,
Okay.
because we're about to finish off.
Unpopular with the Democrats, actually.
Oh, I believe that, well, no, I believe Medicare for all. There are a lot of Democrats who are not getting behind it, and we need to push that one forward. Additionally, there are other things such as I believe in farm subsidies. A lot of Democrats aren't for it. I believe that we should make sure our farmers are supported.
Okay, same
Joey,
question for
same
you, Joey.
question.
Okay, so I might go a little bit off of what Morgan said with the farm subsidies. Yes, we should be helping out our farmers and not just big agriculture. But I think that the corn specific subsidies that we have are a World War II era policy, and those need to be redistributed towards regenerative farms or cattle farms or producing something other than corn because we've run out of uses for it. We're trying to burn it now. And it's just not as effective as we thought. So I don't think that those corn subsidies should necessarily continue in the way that they currently are, but that does not mean to yank the rug out from underneath our farmers. Of course, we need to continue to support them instead of sending $40 billion to Argentina so that they can undercut us with their soy sales to China.
Yep. On that note, folks, it's 9 o'clock. Thank you both for joining us, and please do stay tuned in next week for our next forum. And we will continue the conversation on Facebook as we go while the station, excuse me, while the station takes a break for the top of the hour news. And thank you also to our panelists and Mike Patino, Dr. Sheila White, Read Bible, and Congresswoman Marie Newman. Excellent.